he's just so aloof. And I remember looking at him and thinking,
Kareem. Okay,
Kareem,
yeah.
just and so I was just kind of, and so James Worthy kind of comes up to me and goes, it ain't personal. He's like this with everybody. So he was just one of those guys. He had his chair faced into a corner and was reading a book.
Right.
And it just was just one of those. I don't think he, and he's meeting him after that, and subsequently. But when he was playing, he was just very much to himself. He just was absolutely.
And what type of interaction did you have with him after the NBA?
You know what? When you got with him, he's really highly intelligent. Really
Yeah.
good, really a very intelligent, really good guy.
Yeah.
Just normal, but never playing. He was one of those guys. I don't think I ever said anything to him when I played. Because one of the guys said, "Look, you don't want to piss off Kareem. He's good enough without getting him pissed off." So it was like we all kind of left Kareem alone. He was one of those guys that no one said much to him because everybody respected his game so much. He was, to me, when everybody talks about the best players who ever play, I always say you cannot forget Kareem. Kareem was that good. I mean, he was effective well into his mid-30s. And he took care of himself. He did a lot of stretching. He did all the martial arts and different things. And he was worried about diet before everybody thought about that stuff. But yeah, he was just different. And but a great player. I tell everybody he's one of those guys that more than Michael Jordan for me, because we played him in the finals, that he could take a game over and there was nothing you could do about it. He made shots that you couldn't defend. He was just phenomenal.
So him, Russell, Chamberlain. Who'd you take?
Well, I you know what? Probably just because I'm more familiar with him, I would take just Kareem because of his skill set. But all the guys that played with Russell was like there was a he had the ability to win games. And that's what it was all about. They were like, if you needed one game to be won, you would take Bill Russell over all those guys. And because it wasn't about skill, it was about will.
Right.
And Russ had an
and
indomitable
not just
will.
his will, he had that type of character that raised the level of play of everybody around him,
And they all knew it too.
And Wilt didn't have that. Wilt was a great individual player.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the ability to raise the ability of play of the people that were around him. Now, Jordan evolved into that, right? Initially, he was that great individual player that scored a lot, and But, he found out. He had the IQ, the basketball IQ, to realize that, I've got to make these other guys, and that's when he started.
Talk to the older Celtics, the guys that played with Bill Russell, they would just be like flat out like, you can say what you want about Jordan, Kareem, and all these guys. If you wanted to win a game, you wanted number 6 on your team because he just was he was that good. And so I got those stories from all those guys all the time. So let me tell you something. You don't play 13 seasons and win 11 championships by accident.
Right.
And so the guy was just an unbelievable winner. I mean, Russ just had the ability to make his teammates believe, and he played at such an intense level, really highly intelligent player, and everybody played better. When you played with him, everybody, and I think he had an unbelievable presence about him, like, we're going to win.
Yeah.
And it was like an expectation level of, we're going to win.
Yeah.
And they did.
Right.
And so there's
I
just
tell you,
something
in
that's
football,
special.
who was like that I knew was Roger Staubach.
Yeah, just had that.
Had that same kind of ability to, not arrogance, but just knowing that, I can win, and then everybody that looks at you thinks, we can win with him, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we've got a chance.
Yeah, like I said, you don't win. No one will ever win 11 championships again in the NBA history. I don't care who you are, because it's just the league's changed. But still, that's. I don't care if the league didn't change. That's impossible to win that much. It's so hard to win championships. You're looking at. I think Jordan ended up playing 14 years. He won 6 championships.
Yeah.
There's 8 years he didn't win.
Right.
Russ played 13 years. There's 2 years he didn't win. So think about
Do the math.
it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that was, and I think that's easy to dismiss because there was no flamboyance.
No.
Right, with Russell He was a leader. He was he was on the court coach, and it was fundamentals, right?
He just was gonna, like I always said, when the skill level is equal or relatively equal, the will level, and he had a will that was here, and I just think he outwilled people, which is an unbelievable trait to have.
It is, and that was the same. I mean, Staubach had that. Jordan had that.
Yeah,
right?
you had kind of that indomitable will that you were going to be able to impose your will on the other team. You're going to be able to impose your play on that team, and it may not happen in the first minute of the game, but in the 48-minute game, at some point in that game, he was going to impose his presence on the game, which is cool. I mean, like I say, that just doesn't happen. Even the best players of today will never. Nobody's going to amass the records for winning that Russell did. And don't forget Sam Jones, Casey Jones, Havlicek, Heinsohn. Kuzi started that thing with those guys, and I mean, you can go down there. Those guys did something that and people, the league was different, and you know what? They played at the best competition in the world during their time, and they dominated.
Yeah.
And look at Elgin Baylor was a hell of a player, transcendent player. Wilt Chamberlain, transcendent. They played. It wasn't like they played against a bunch of scrubs. They beat the best of the best, because the NBA has always been the best of the best.
Right.
Whether it was in the '60s or the '70s or the '80s or today, it's the best players in the world that are playing in the NBA.
No question. I mean, 11 years. I mean, that's a long time. To win, and again, 11 out of 13. I mean, that's just. I mean, it's unbelievable, and people dismiss that again and don't take into consideration. And again, I think that it is because the lack of the flamboyance. He was just, I mean, it was fundamentals. It was basketball skills, passing, dribbling, right, and the very basics. And they just did that over and over and over and over. Did the fundamentals really well.
Yeah, they didn't turn the ball over. They didn't beat themselves, and they ended up putting you in positions where you were uncomfortable. They pushed you to areas. They were just smart. They were those guys. All that whole group of guys that played were all high basketball IQ guys. Mm-hmm. Casey Jones, who was one of my favorite, one of my favorite coaches and one of my favorite people. Sam Jones, Havlicek, Heinsohn, Kuzi, Russell, those guys, Sam Jones, Satch Sanders. These guys had really high basketball IQs. They knew how to win, and there's an art to winning too. I tell you what, it's not just about skill either.
That was another guy, who was really unsung. Who was, he was the ball, before anybody, before Maravich or Magic or Kuzi was doing things in the 60s, that these other guys got praised for later on. But you watch that old footage of Bob Cousy, man. I mean, he was a magician with the basketball,
Yeah, they loved it because they throw ahead, they ran, they played aggressive basketball. Cousy was always throwing long passes down the floor.
I mean, so Magic did that a lot. I wonder if he got that from Cousy. But he was making those passes that everybody gave so much credit to Magic for. Back in the 60s, before Magic was born.
And Cousy had a little flair to his game too. Cousy had the lookaways and the different things and people weren't doing that.
No.
That's when Cousy was doing. He started doing it a little bit more.
No, he did it. Then Pete did it, and then Magic did it.
Yeah.
And then the guy, what was the other guy that did that really well? The passing. What was his name? A really good ball handling white guy.
Stockton?
Huh?
John Stockton?
No.
No, John Stockton. He didn't do look. John Stockton was just basic.
No. This guy was just. He was like Magic Johnson. His ability to pass and no look and that kind of thing. God, what was his name?
Steve Nash?
Huh? No, not Nash. No,
Williams.
Who? What was that?
His name
Williams.
Williams.
Yeah, him.
He played in Sacramento. He had all the behind the back.
Right.
The Nationals guys, they were just much more fundamental.
Fundamentals. But Williams, he was he was a showboat.
Yeah.
It was just natural. Like Magic, it was just natural, and he could just do it.
They like that. They like doing that.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't last very long though. I don't think. Jason Williams.
Jason Williams.
Jason
exactly,
Williams.
yep.
Oh my God, yeah, the skinhead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I forgot about him.
yeah. Played in Sacramento.
And then let me see. How many years was Auerbach the owner while you were there?
Red was there my whole.
He was the whole
career,
time.
Yeah, the whole time. Red
He
coach.
wasn't the owner though.
He was general manager.
He was like the general,
General
manager.
manager,
Yeah.
okay.
He was
Yeah.
coached, and then he then his last took over as general manager, and he gave actually Bill Russell's last year. Bill Russell was the player coach, which was really unheard of, and then Russ was player coach. But yeah, Red was the general manager the entire time I was in Boston. And another guy though, he won 16 championships during his reign in Boston that started in the 50s
Right.
and really ended in the 90s. And he won 16 championships. That doesn't happen by accident either. He understood about putting teams together. He understood chemistry. He understood guys that fit together and guys that didn't fit together. So Red had a really
Ultimate loyalty.
yes, he did.
Oh my God, was that guy loyal?
Loyal to.
Well,
The
if you
players. If he felt
bled
you-
for Red, he. Yeah, I played on a broken foot and did some stuff, and we didn't win the championship that year, and had surgery. And later on, they should have traded me actually because I had value around the league. I've been beat up and couldn't play there. When I wanted to play, Lynn and I were going to the Christmas party, and there was a big article about they should trade McHale and all this stuff. And so Red comes in and says, "Hey, McHale, let me talk to you real quick." And I said, "Okay." So I go over there, and Red, he got the cigar.
Cigar, right.
He says, I tell you what, this guy just got a meeting with the owners, and I told them if they trade you, they can go ahead and fire me. I quit. He said, "You'll be here." He said, "Enjoy the Christmas party," and that was Red. And actually, like Danny said, Danny Ainge, my old teammate, said, "You should have traded you. I didn't trade you. I knew you traded me." I said, "You're a bad guy." But Red was unbelievably loyal.
Right.
And he just was interesting, an unbelievably interesting.
Do you remember
guy.
the first time you met him?
Yeah, I do, very much so. I got drafted by the Celtics. I was in New York, flew up to Boston. A guy picked me up at the airport, came in there, and Red was the first guy to meet me at the door, and he said, he called me up before the draft and said they were going to draft me, but I'd never met him. And he was at the door, and he said, "You're the guy I wanted the whole time." He goes, "You're going to be hell of a pro." And I was like, "Thank you." And that was my
Wow.
introduction to Red.
Yeah.
But Red was one of those guys, just a really good guy, but just cut to the chase.
Right.
He was a basketball guy, and
Did he try to
just
coach any?
Oh, he coached forever, before we got there. But now, when we
No, I
got
mean when
there,
he was general manager.
No,
did he-
not too much. He would help you though. Like if you went to him and said, "What do you see?" or "What am I doing?" or whatever. He always, he was a basketball guy through and through.
Yeah.
Red was one of those guys that he did. I'm not sure what else he did, but I know one thing: he did basketball really well,
Right.
as well as anybody.
But
ever
he
did
didn't.
it.
He didn't interfere with KC.
No, he didn't interfere with the coaches at all. Really, he let them coach. I think he had coached for a long time. I think he understood that.
Who did he coach?
Red. Yeah, Red coached all those Russell teams. He was coaching there from
Oh, okay.
57.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That's
all
right,
the way
that's
up.
right,
So
that's
yeah,
right.
Red coached there all those except for Russ's last year.
Yep.
He let Bill Russell be the player coach, and so
Yeah.
he was. And those guys had funny stories about Red. Like Red was a no nonsense
He was
guy.
yeah.
And he was just a good basketball person.
I'm trying to think. Was that other than Russell? Did anybody else do the player coach thing?
Lenny Wilkins did a little bit of. Lenny Wilkins player coach a little bit. That's the only two I could think of.
Walton didn't do that.
No,
No.
Was Heinsohn coach?
No,
Tom Heinsohn?
No,
Oh,
Heinsohn
Heinsohn
coach.
did, okay.
Heinsohn coach after he quit, after
Oh,
he
okay,
retired.
yeah.
I'm saying player coach, which is
Yeah, no, I
impossible.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at those guys that could do that because it's hard enough to play.
Right.
And then you think if you're playing and trying to organize 11 other guys and trying to get everything, it's amazing that Russell and Lenny Wilkins could do it, but they both did it. It's the only two I know.
Yeah. And that's an odd thing for someone of that caliber player to be able to then transition into coach.
Yeah, Lenny coached for a lot of years. Russ coached afterwards. Yeah, but playing coach.
But
player
most
coaches-
play, I mean, that are really high level players, and then they try to transition into coaching, like Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Isaiah couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's different. I think you have to put aside, and I think the guys who were successful, Larry took Indiana Pacers to the NBA Finals. They lost to the Lakers. Phil Jackson wasn't a great player, but he was, he was a
But he was a good coach, yeah.
I think if you played at a certain level and you coach, you kind of had to quit expecting everybody to be at your level IQ wise. You had to accept people for what they are. I think the coaches that did the best job kind of accepted the players for who they were, pushed them to get better, but didn't, I did this right. They didn't. I think they had a realistic expectation level. I know Larry was a very good coach because Larry looked at his players and just looked at what they could or couldn't do.
Yeah.
And the best, and I think that's what the best coaches do. There hasn't been a ton of Lenny Wilkins coached for a lot of years. I'm trying to think of ex-players that won championships as coaches.
It's not common.
Casey Jones was our coach. Lenny Wilkins never did win a championship. So it's not that common. I mean.
I'm trying. There's one other guy, who was, I don't know if he's winning championships, but he was a pretty good
Rick
coach.
Carlisle.
Yeah, Rick's won a championship in Dallas and won one with us with the Celtics. I'm trying to think of a lot of the coaches. There just hasn't been,
No.
the Magic Johnsons of the world and a lot of great players. Like, Kareem never really coached just different.
Yeah. Now he's, I don't know, intellectually, he's somebody that I thought that could have been a good coach.
Yeah.
Kareem.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Did he
guys.
coach like at the high school
A
level?
lot of
He
guys
did
could have been
something.
really good coaches. I just think, I think one thing is it's a lot of work, man. I tell you what,
Yeah.
you're trying to organize everybody and get
Right.
everybody going, and
Right.
a lot of sleepless nights.
Right.
And, I think a lot of players got done playing and they went on to do different things.
There at Houston, who was your best player? Who was the guy that you thought that, just natural basketball
the
IQ,
best-
hard worker?
Best player that we had when I was there was James Harden.
Yeah.
Who, unbelievably gifted passer, could score the ball. I mean, these first few practices we had with him, I couldn't believe his vision. He saw passes that you're on the same angle, and you're like, how the hell did he see that? He has unique offensive basketball skills, and he's, for James, it's two sides of the court. I always said it's going to be hard to win unless you're really dedicated on the other side too. You just can't be an offensive player. It's hard just to be just a one-way player. You got
Right.
to play defense, teams that end up winning championships have players. Their top players love the challenge of guarding the other team's top players. Like Michael Jordan Michael may not. He played defense throughout the game, but boy, the last 5 minutes, he would say, "Let me have this guy. Let me have that
Right.
guy." Kawhi Leonard now is probably might be the best two-way player. Won the championship last year in Toronto, but he's another guy that when the other guy gets hot, he looks at the coach and says, "Put me on him." And I always said what that does is you get your best defender on their best offensive player, which is a great matchup for you anyways. But also it gives the rest of your teammates. The rest of your teammates walk out and go like, "Oh, okay, Kawhi
you
wants
think,
that guy."
Russell and Harden and KD were on the same team.
Three MVPs. All three of them won an MVP in the league, which is pretty amazing. I'm not sure there's ever been a team assembled, and I know those guys all didn't win the MVP at the same time, but they played there. James won his MVP in Houston, but they had three MVP guys on there at
Oklahoma, yeah.
At Oklahoma, as I think a third-year player or second-year player, and I think they were all within a year
Yep.
of each other.
Right.
And they had an unbelievable kind of nucleus, and they just they never won a championship there.
No.
Which, it kind of surprised me.
Yeah. And I think that's coaching.
Yeah, there's just a lot of it though too. They were
But
young. They
it's
were,
evolving, right, into
yeah, they were
players,
young,
right,
and
Who's
and
that
young.
coach then, Kev?
It was Scotty Brooks, and I
Oh,
just
it was
think,
Scotty Brooks.
I think a lot of times with young players, they're trying to establish themselves in the league, and then winning comes second.
Right.
And I always said the guys that kind of come in and put winning first have a leg up on everybody. Like Magic Johnson came in and won a championship his first year. Tim Duncan came in and won a championship his first year. Larry Bird won a championship his second year. But you can go down. There's not a lot of guys that really won early in their career because they're so concerned about trying to establish yourself. And I think those guys were trying to establish themselves. It was establish myself here and winning here. If you
Right.
want to win the NBA, winning's got to be.
Right.
It's got to be your number one priority. And a lot of young guys, it's hard to do. So you see a lot of young guys that evolve into it. And that's one of the things that I think has changed a lot. I think years past, I think players came in much more trying to win and team first. These guys are trying to establish themselves a lot right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Just different.
What type of vacuum did it create with Kobe's death?
Yeah, that was he was 41. I think the vacuum it created was everybody kind of realized life is short. I think
Yeah.
Kobe had retired. He was an idol to a lot of these guys who are playing today. But the actual NBA, Kobe wasn't completely out of the NBA, but he wasn't coaching. He wasn't so it was just much more of a thing I think it was much. I know for me, it was like he's 41.
Mm-hmm.
Like wow, like
Yeah.
he had his whole life
Right.
to live and do everything. So it was just one of those things that kind of hit you hard. Like
Yeah.
wow, that's just
So sudden.
because you don't when I first heard it, I thought it says Kobe died. I said there's no way. And they said crash. I thought car crash. Well, all of a sudden I go, oh gosh, helicopter crash. I said helicopter crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just a lot of people went like wow, it just hits you because I think sometimes, like even now when I see,
Did you know him personally?
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew Kobe. I played against his father, so we talked about differently. We very seldom talk basketball. I'd always say, how's Jelly Bean doing? And we talked about his dad more in his life
Right.
more than anything else
Right,
when I talked
right,
to him.
right.
But you like it's funny because in my mind's eye, I see a lot of guys even I played with, and I did an interview with Dr. J just a couple weeks ago, and in my mind, Dr. J was going to be the 30-year-old Dr. J. Well, Dr. J's 70, and you don't think these guys are ever going to age.
Right.
They seem
Right.
ageless to me.
Right.
In my mind, I still see them as when I played against them.
Right.
And so so they become. It's odd because you almost think that. With Kobe, you just think there's no way he's dying at 41. You just think these guys are just are immune to that. But man, we're all here, and it's a short stay.
Right.
But I will say this: he lived 10 lifetimes, and everybody who was able to live a dream that we all were able to live. He lived 10 lifetimes in those 41 years, but it was still too short.
Yep.
It would have been too short if he was 61.
Yep.
And it's going to be too short for all of us.
Yeah. So, all right. Great.
All right.
Always good.